Good morning. You guys can have a seat for just a moment. Today, if you're our very first time here, if you're a first-time guest, you are our VIP, and we just want to know you're here. And to do that, if you could just take a picture of the hub there, scan that, or later today, if you don't want to do it now, if you want to go to later today, just go to c3church.tv/hub. And there you can register as a first-time guest, and we just want to give you a free gift just for showing up. And we're not going to come to your house or anything weird like that. We just truly want to say thank you for joining us. And if you're sitting there this morning, if you were like me and you're like, man, I wish there was somewhere I could go to get all the info about this church. I wish there was a place I could go to know upcoming events, what to do. Well, good luck. c3church.tv/thehub, same exact place. You can find all the info you need. So we're going to pray, and then we're going to sing a couple more songs, and then Trent's going to get up here with a great message. God, thank you for this church. Thank you for this morning. And ultimately, thank you for sending your son to die on the cross. Thank you for saving us from our sins. We love you, and we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Let's stand up and sing some more.
Are good and you are kind. You bring joy into my life. You make it easy to trust you. You have never left my side. You've been faithful every time. And all I want is you, Jesus. All I want is you. You are the refuge I run to. You are the fire that leads me through the night. I'll follow you anywhere. There's a million reasons to trust you. Nothing to fear, for you are by my side. I'll follow you anywhere. Jesus, you came to my rescue. You took my place upon that cross. You redeemed what I had lost. Now my whole world revolving around you. You're the center of my life. You're the treasure, you're the prize. And all I want is you, Jesus. All I want is you. Come on, sing it with us. You are the refuge I run to. You are the fire that leads me through the night. I'll follow you anywhere. There's a million reasons to trust you. You are never by my side. I'll follow you anywhere. Follow you anywhere. Oh, I'll follow you anywhere. Oh, wherever you lead me, whatever it costs me, all I want is you, Jesus. All I want is, come on, sing that with us. Wherever you lead me, whatever it costs me, all I want is you, Jesus. All I want is you. Come on. Wherever you lead me, whatever it costs me, all I want is you, Jesus. All I want is you. Father, help us to do that just today, and the chance that we have to be able to hear from your word and be able to grow together and be around each other as we recharge for this week, as we go out to be able to truly change lives, as we try to live a life pleasing to you by showing your love and showing your grace and mercy to others so that others can do the same thing. Help us now as we're here together to sing one more to your praise and your honor and glory. We love you. When our homes are hit by heartbreak, let your presence meet us there. When the pain seems overwhelming, we hold on to you. When the streets are torn by chaos, we will be your hands and feet. When the darkness brings division, may we be your light. Our world needs Jesus. We know my life and for the world. You're the Savior, Jesus.
Amen. You may be seated.
All right, well, good morning. How's everyone today? Good New Year? I like the person that wooed over there. You're a good time, good time. I got a question for you guys. What do you think it takes to have a fulfilled life? Honestly, I want you to actually answer, just what comes to mind. What are the things, if you want to be fulfilled in your life, then what are the things that you need? Jesus, okay, he knew church. You got to definitely go there first, right? Anyone else? Love? Come on, let's make it like a hootenanny. Just start screaming at me. It'll be a good time. Okay. Anybody else? Money? Right? How many people think money would help at least be more fulfilled? Just be honest. Like, if I had more money, it'd be better, right? How many people think if I could just be more talented? It seems like people around me are more talented. I'm not. Anyone feel like maybe just a little more talent? No? Okay, you guys are the most talented people I know, I guess. Okay. Let's be honest. How many of you would say, you know what, I think I could get ahead a little bit more, Trent, if I was just maybe a little more attractive? Anybody? Just kind of wish you were more attractive? Trust me, my wife wishes I was more attractive every day. She looks at me every day. She has that look. We have a hot tub. Don't think we're too rich. It's portable. It's a blow-up hot tub. But every day we get out there, you know, she's in her bathing suit, and I walk out, throw that shirt off, and she's like, What choices in my life have I made? Yeah, so we think a lot of these things. But what I want to challenge you on this morning is, what if a life of more fulfillment, even according to God, started with your decisions? What if the key to kind of get this thing on the right track has to go back first to the decisions that you consistently make? This author that I love said this. He said, the quality of your decisions determines the quality of your life. And I believe that. I really do. I believe that would be honest for a lot of us. Here's the problem. Here's the whole kind of tension today as we get started. We're going to be reading in the book of Daniel, and we're going to get some really, I think, some great kind of a model of how we can make better decisions. But before we get there, here's where the rubber meets the road. We're not good decision makers. Do you know that? We're not. You think you are. I think I am. But we are not good decision makers. And there's probably a lot of different reasons for that. I was a youth pastor before we started C3 at a church in Chesapeake, kind of close to Proctorville. And we decided to take the group to Gatlinburg for this huge youth retreat, right? Well, it was cool because the group had grown, so we had to get 2 or 3 vans. And I remember because, volunteer-wise, I had to drive one. I think maybe my wife drove one. There's another lady who attends C3 now. She was driving one. Well, we get to this parking garage because they're wanting a go-kart race or whatever. So we're going to pull in this parking garage. And I remember as I went in, I started to go up, and I had literally this 15-year-old idiot beside me, right? My co-pilot. And I get close to it, and there was a little sign that said clearance in so many feet, 6 feet, 7 feet, whatever. And it was on chains. Well, we start pulling up to it, right? And the very top of our van hits it pretty hard. So I look at him, he looks at me, because we're both morons. And I said, hey, step out and lift that sign up so we can go under it. This is a true story. And he was like, yeah, that's a good idea, right? So he lifts it up, and we just mosey on through. As soon as we pass that, all I hear is just collective horns everywhere. Everybody's blowing. I'm like, why? And people in the van are like, hey, I think they want us to stop. I'm like, why? Why does it matter? And they just keep laying on. So I look, and the older lady behind me is waving, right? So I'm like, hold on. So I walk out of the van. How dumb is this, right? This is a true story. And I walk back, and I'm like, is there a problem, ma'am? And she said, do you not get why that sign's there? We're going to go up another level, and where he lifted up the sign, it's going to be concrete. And you're going to take the whole top of that van off. And you know what I said? It's a rental, right? I mean, who cares? Let's roll with this thing. But here's the bottom line. I would like to tell you guys I'm smarter than that. I wasn't. I didn't fully comprehend what was going on, right? We all do that, and you're different. You're like, no, Trey, I'm better. I'm a good decision maker. I say that too about myself, but we don't make good decisions. Why is that? Well, if you read any studies, super fast before we get into Daniel, you'll see that humans make on an average of 35,000 decisions a day. So sometimes it's just overwhelming for a lot of us. It really is. I think that's kind of one key thing. I think the other thing for a lot of us, and some of you are like this, you're scared to death to make the wrong choice. Anyone kind of like that? You're like, oh my gosh, you literally just kind of get in freak out mode, and what you don't do is you don't make any choice, right? And I've always said indecision to my kids is still a decision, right? Usually it's not a great decision either. But here's the one I want to camp out on because I think it's so important. I think emotions trump logic in every moment. You know, and I know if you're a parent, when my kids, especially when they're little, when they lose their mind, I need to be calm, be patient, kind of work it out. I know what I need to do, but what decision do I make in that moment when you're tired, right? When they just won't quit asking, Dad, 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 right? Well, you lose it, right? Emotions trump logic. They always do. And I think that's why a lot of us think, no, I make great decisions. You probably don't, because you probably let your emotions trump. When you step back, you're like, I shouldn't have done it that way. Before we get going, I want to tell you just a real quick story of just how much and how dumb we can be with our decisions and how emotions do trump logic. I grew up out in the country in Sims Valley and that area, and our house would flood all the time. I always wondered why we didn't just move. Our house would flood. We'd always be working so hard to fix stuff. We replaced the whole floor of our house once. It was miserable. We're jacking up our house. Well, in the middle of doing that, we're outside, and I'll never forget, I'm maybe 16, somewhere in that age, and both my brothers out there, we're working with our dad. We're miserable, right? It's flood. It smells horrible. We wish we were anywhere else. And I remember as I'm working, I look over and kind of underneath our house, which is going basically to my bedroom, right, I see the back part of a snake. Well, because I'm a smart person, like I've shown already, right, my first response was I just grabbed it by its tail. So I grabbed this snake, and it's a big snake. I grabbed the snake by its tail, and all I can see is the back part of its body, and it starts wiggling, but its head's caught inside, right? So I'm looking at that, and I'm like, Dad, what do I do? And he told me, he's like, don't let go of the snake. Like, okay, gotcha. So I'm holding it, and it's going crazy. Like, its head's in there somewhere, but he's like, don't let it get in our house. Gotcha. So I'm just holding it. Well, it's like a long time I'm holding the thing. I'm like, we got to figure out something here, right? Cut it in half, do something. My dad literally says to my little brother, who's dumber than all of us, go get a .22 pistol. I knew instantly holding that snake that emotions are trumping logic right now, right? They really did. And I remember when we got back, this is the dumbest thing I've ever been part of. I'm holding a snake, and my little brother, instead of standing close to me, which would make more sense, he's back there, right? And my dad's back there, cigarette. My brother's watching. He's like, just pull it out. He'll shoot it. Like, this has so many bad things that could go wrong. True story, right? But here's the point. In the moment, all they're doing is screaming at me, don't let go, don't let go. We'll shoot it, we'll do something, right? There was no logic in that. Now, if we're honest, most of us in here, that's the way we make a lot of decisions. I just got really emotional. I just got upset, so I said that. Right. You don't make good decisions. So here's what I want to challenge you with today. What if we this year could live a life that really counted? What if we could live a life at the end of 2023 where we'd say, you know what? I truly love people better. My relationships got better. I love people better. What if we could get to the year and say, you know what? I truly think I honor God more and better this year than I ever have in any previous year. What if we could say, you know what? I really think 2023 was an amazing year. Why? Because I think my life counted for something. I think I just had a better direction. Number two, I think more importantly, I love people. And number three, even more important, I think I did a good job of trying to truly honor God with my life. How do we do that? I think it's the power of pre-deciding. Daniel 1:8. This is what it says. It says, but Daniel resolved. Daniel made a decision before he had to make a decision. That's what resolve means. Daniel already knew what he was going to do before the moment actually arrived. Well, what was that? What did Daniel resolve to do? He resolved or decided not to defile himself with the royal food and the wine because he knew in that culture it was offered to pagan gods, and that was kind of a big no-no to the Jewish culture. So he made a decision beforehand. So last week we talked about our auto response. My auto response is I want to be consistent. This week, though, and this is kind of the baseline of all of this, and I want you to hear this and we'll put it on the screen. My auto response, maybe, yes, is decisions are predetermined. I'm going to really think through how can I make better decisions by thinking about my decisions before I make them. I know that sounds confusing, but that really is some great wisdom from God. With God's help, I want to already make the decision. With God's help, I want to already make this decision. So if you watched online, you kind of know this. If you didn't, I'll just catch you up real quick. In the book of Daniel, the story is basically the king of the Babylonian Empire. They're taking over everybody. They had a really awesome system too. They would go in and find the best, the smartest, the brightest of the young boys and the young girls. They would bring them back to their culture. They would indoctrinate them with their teachings, their religion, and basically they just created the best of the best. They literally had a super nation because they took the best, right? It would be like me if I was going to coach. I'm just making this up. Let's say that South Point hires me as their football. I know they have a coach. I'm just pretend they hire me as their football coach this year. How do I really build a great team? Some of you are like, well, you're from Ironton. I think we know. Yeah, you're right? I'm going to say, who's Colgrove's best 5 players? Who is Ironton's best 5 players? Who's Chesapeake's best, right? And that's really what they're doing, though. They're literally just grabbing the best of the best and bringing them back to them. So here's how the story kind of takes off. So they take Daniel and 3 of his pretty close friends. They're all about the same age, maybe 13, 14, somewhere around there. Bring them to a whole new place. Could you imagine being kidnapped as a kid? You're brought to a new place, you don't know anybody, and they just start hammering you with all this stuff that now you have to do and learn to be more like them. So here's why I think brings us as we get this story. Why are decisions harder than we think? Why is that? Decisions should be easy, but they're not. Well, here's part of the reason why, and this story shows us. You see, they had a king and a culture that was constantly trying to get them to think differently than God. Guess what? We have an enemy and a culture that's constantly trying to get you and me to think differently than God. We do. He's trying to create a pattern in our lives where we don't think like we should. That's why it's actually hard. There's actually an enemy trying to mess with your thoughts and your decisions. That's how the enemy works. Now, the first thing the enemy does, and this is in the first part of Daniel 3, chapter 1, verse 3, it says, here's what he did. He brings the boys in, and he says, the first thing we're going to do, look at verse 3. It says, he was to teach them the language and the literature of the Babylonians. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that, they were to enter the king's service. The first thing the king did, and I think the enemy wants to do to us, is he wants to change or at least question how you think. You see, if I can change how you think, it's all gravy after that. And this is what the king did. He's like, I know I need to teach them how we think so they think like us. That's the first part. Now look at the second part, though. You don't just leave it at think, then you move to how you believe. And I promise I'm going somewhere with this in just a second. It says, among those who are chosen were some from Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. The chief official gave them new names. Woo! Why is that? Why did he change their names? And some of you heard the story, Meshach, right? Abednego, the 3 Hebrew boys. But I want you to think about this, and this is really critical. Leave this up for a second. This is interesting. Daniel and all 3 of those boys had names that were all, and you can look it up later, it's interesting, all are directly related to God. Like one means to trust in God. One means God is always able. One means God will provide. So they grew up hearing in their culture, their names meant something. Every time they heard their name, like, yes, God is able. When their mom was mad at them and screaming at them to come in because they're late, all they really heard was her screaming, God is able. Well, look what the king does. He says, no, I'm giving you new names. And all 4 of these names actually are directly related to a pagan god. So he was like, from now on, when people call you, all I want you to think about is not your God, but our God's. You see, he first started with how they think, and then he wanted to change how they believe. Why am I wasting all the time with this? I'll tell you why this is so important. Here's the pattern of your life. It starts with how you think. Then it moves to what you believe. And then what you believe always comes full circle to how you will behave. I promise you, all your decisions are going to ultimately come back to how you think and how you truly believe about something. It really is. And that's what he did to success. The enemy knew that. So what's that mean for us? Have you ever met someone who flies off the handle all the time? I mean, they lose their crap daily, right? If you ever know somebody like that, and I know we all do, just that really angry human, what do they normally say, though? Like when they're calm, you're talking to them, like, I just have anger issues. My daddy was angry. My pappy was angry. My great-grandpappy, when he's bootlegging, was angry. You know, they go down the line, right? You're talking to people, and you're like, you know, I know I'm unhealthy. My whole family's always been unhealthy. We've never been into exercise, right? You talk to people. It doesn't matter what you say. People, it's like you start saying, okay, because you think that, you ultimately believe it, and because you believe it, you'll act on it. That's how it works. The enemy has done this literally from the beginning of time. So that's why it's important for us to first, and this is so critical, how we can make our decisions easier and better. How do we do that? I want to real quick just give you kind of 3 things to think about, because you have literally a ton of things in your life that are just on auto response, right? If I could watch you shower this morning, and as soon as I said that, I realized how weird that sounded, right? But honestly, if I could watch you get ready in the morning, it's still not sounding any better, never mind. But if I could watch you in the shower, I promise, one time, if I didn't even look, if you just started telling me, I was taking notes, right? You got the shower curtain closed, you're like, I'm going to wash my hair. This is the body part I wash next, and this is what I do. I promise after one time, I probably could call it for you the next day. If I would see your routine when you wake up, not all, but most of you would be like, I could probably peg you every day, right? We follow routines. A lot of our decisions we start making just on autopilot. And this is where God's saying, no, you've got to be careful that you at least think about how you think. And that's the first thing. I want you to realize that your thinking isn't as good as you think it is. Some of you are like, you know what, I just can't keep a guy, right? And I know I just picked the wrong guy, right? It's probably something to do with your thinking, and mine as well. Look what Romans 12 says. It says, do not conform to the pattern. There's a pattern in the world, but be transformed by the renewing. How do we get transformed? According to Paul, he says, hey, you got to first change your mind. You got to change the way that you think. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. If you really want to know how to change your direction in your life, it starts first with changing how you think. How do you think? How do you change how you think? If you want a biblical perspective, then it means spending time with God. I thought of this week. It's not even that good. But I thought, if you really want to know where you're headed in life, if all of you in here want to know where you're going to be headed at the end of 2023, I can give you the answer right now. Every person in here, I don't have to know you. You want to know where you're headed and where you'll be at the end of 2023? All I have to know is, what are you chasing right now? See, I know where my kids are headed by simply watching what they chase. Whatever you chase is where you're ultimately going to be. We started last week the 4x6 plan. So many of you signed up. It's awesome. But here's what we said. 4 minutes a day. Go to c3church.tv/the hub. It's the reading plan. It's right on there. But you can sign up and get an email, except for Pam, who her emails aren't showing up. Sorry, Pam. We'll fix that. But you actually can literally read 4 minutes a day, 6 days a week. And I believe it's life-changing. Oh, Trent, you're just, that's church talk. No, I believe that. Because what it slowly does is starts changing your mind. Realize that your thinking on your own is not that good. And neither is mine. But number 2, and this is important, we got to pre-decide what we really value. So here's the beauty of this, and people watching online, those of you in this room, even if you're like, Trent, I don't even buy this Christian stuff. I don't. I'm a man of science. I know I can disprove so many things in the Bible. I don't think there's any chance that a donkey talked to a human. I'm just going to say it, right? None of this. It's fairy tales. I don't believe it. The beauty of this is, even if you didn't believe this, here's what I would challenge you. What do you value? What do you really value? Most people can't answer that. The majority of the people I know can't answer what's really important to them. What do you want to be said of you when your life's over? When you're in a box one day, and you're going to be, sadly, like I am, and people are going to come up and they're going to say stuff about you. What do you want them to say about you? What do you value? You got to pre-decide what's really the most important to you. That's why last week we talked about being consistent. That's important to me because I know if I'm not consistent, I go off the rails. Can I confess to you guys real quick? I didn't even have this in my notes. I'm going to share just super fast. I got to confess, okay? Over the break, I started eating like a moron. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, I loved it. I mean, anything inside. There was one day I was off and I looked at my wife and said, we should go to Long John Silver's. And she gave me that, I don't want to. I was like, come on, girl. It'd be a good time, right? And I'm there ordering, and the guy's like, sure, that's great for a family of 5. I'm like, that's just for me, right? 32 pieces of fish. But really, that's how it works. But here's the thing. We got in the car, we're driving back, and my wife, who I truly believe loves me dearly, she said this. She said, you've got to have parameters in your life. She said, when you make a decision to be disciplined, she said, you're as good as anybody I know. You're like military grade. She said, but if you don't have parameters, you're off the rails. Like, I have never seen anybody who eats so bad as you, right? And I thought, that's because I got to determine what do I value being healthy? Do I value living to maybe see my grandkids? I do. So I know I've got to pre-decide what I value. It says, but Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. He asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. See, it's interesting to me that Daniel didn't lose his mind. This is Christianity 101 in the Bible Belt. We're like, I don't like it. I'm going to fight it. I'm going to protest everybody. I'm going to be against everybody. Daniel didn't do that. He's just like, look, I can't do this. So what's the first thing he does? He doesn't lose his mind. He's not me. He says, hey, I need to talk to somebody in charge. Would it be okay? See, he handled this so much better than most of us would handle a sticky situation. But here's what I love. When your values are clear, your decisions become very easy. That's why there's the beauty in pre-deciding. And then the third one, real fast. I want to challenge you to pre-decide to do things differently. Pre-decide to do things differently. Look what it says in verse 12. It said, please test your servants for 10 days. Here's the deal I'll make you. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. You're like, well, what's that to do with anything? Notice the key thing. He pre-decided, right? But then he actually lived out. He worked out the decisions that he made. He literally decided, I'm going to do things differently according to how I decided to do that. His decisions wasn't based on emotions in the moment. Why? Because he pre-decided. Has anyone ever tried the Atkins diet? Anyone ever tried that? I've done it about 30 times. I love it, right? But you know, I actually was on Atkins once, and there's one thing I noticed. People were talking about, I loved it because in my, with my family, and as dumb as we are, it's like, it first started with, I think it was one of my brothers, like, do you know you can eat 2 pounds of bacon and cheese every day and lose weight? No, I didn't, but I'm intrigued, right? Please tell me. You can eat 40 hamburgers, you just don't have any buns? I don't care about buns. I'll eat 40 hamburgers, right? But here's what I think is more important, the power of that. And I know there's more science, and I'm not going to get into all that. But if you've ever tried that or any diet, here's what it really is. And here's why I think it works. What Atkins really told me was I had to pre-decide there were certain things I couldn't eat. You know what I learned? When I go to people's house most of the time, they don't have hamburger balls rolled up with bacon over top of it, melted in deep fried cheese. That's not what they eat, right? So they'd be like, hey, we have some pasta, we have some, okay, well, I guess I'll just eat. Like you had to pick ahead of time and know. See, that's the power of pre-decision. It wasn't based on the moment. When your values are clear, your decisions become easy. So what I want to challenge you to do today is really this. As you leave, do the hard work for a few minutes and think about, what do I really value? When it's all said and done, let's even go short change. Let's say at the end of this year, what do you value? What do you want said about you when it's all said and done? Now, this is a story in the Old Testament, obviously, and we're going to talk about Daniel over the next few weeks. But I want to also kind of talk about Jesus for a second, because here's the true good news of this. Do you want to know what? There's some great news in all of this, And I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. You are not defined by God by your decisions. Do you know that? You're not. You're completely not. The gospel is such good news that says we're not saved by making better decisions. We're not saved because we do the right thing. We are literally saved by the grace of God. And I can make decisions knowing that He is in control all the time. I can surrender to Him. So as we close today, I want to give you kind of two key values of Jesus. If you're a Jesus follower, if you're not a Jesus follower, I would challenge you to kind of listen to this and think, do I like that? You may not. But if you're a Jesus follower, let me just talk about, Jesus had some I am statements or why I came. I came to do this. I came to do this. I came, he really just says it 3 times, which is fascinating to me, right? And one of the times he said, I came to seek and save the lost. They're trying to get Jesus to do something. Jesus is like, I came to seek and save the lost. So he knew what he valued. But there's another time that's really profound to me. They're talking to him and they're kind of questioning him and the religious people are ticked with him. And he says this, he says, I came to serve, not to be served. You see, Jesus had a value system where he knew his ultimate role, his identity was built in being a servant. He did. So his goal as he woke up and went throughout the day, one of his values was, I am here to serve others. That's pretty profound. Now, a lot of you in here, if you're like me, you're like, but that doesn't sound fun, and I don't think that'll be fulfilling. But what I've learned in my life is the most fulfilling things I do is when I serve others. And he was in the garden, and he knew within just a few hours he's going to be put on a cross and beaten and bleeding and struggling. And he says this prayer to God, which is a true moment of a pre-decision. He says, not my will. God, Father, not my will, but your will. You see, he pre-decided, he knew what was getting ready to what was getting ready to happen. He knew how it was going to play out, and he said, no, God, not my will, but your will. So this morning, here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. What if you just really tried to embrace those values this week? You want to love people better and honor God? Pretty easy. What if you made a pre-decision on the daily that, you know what, I'm going to take a servant's role. I'm going to look for how I can help people around me today. God, help me to see who I can help, who I can serve. And then the second thing is, God, I want my day to be about you and your will and not just me. And that was the whole reason that when he was on the cross and they're mocking him, it says they hurled insults. I don't know what truly hurled means. I guess just literally giving him some zingers. But he's dying, and they're mocking him, and they're laughing at him. And because he pre-decided, here's what he did. Father, forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing. Now, there was a little 12-year-old Trent in his literally molded bedroom because it's been flooded so much with a dead snake underneath it, who started reading the Bible on his own in his room as a kid, 12 years old. And I remember reading a lot of different things about Jesus, but I remember that when I just stopped. It's like, what? Never heard anything like that. The carpenter code was always, if someone hurts you, you hurt them 7 times more, right? You don't start a fight, boy, but you finish one. Gotcha, okay? I think I can do this. And here's the thing, I looked at it and I was like, why did he do that? Because Jesus pre-decided, not my will, but yours. God, I know I came to serve, not be served. You want to have a better marriage? You want to be a better employee? You want to make a difference wherever you work? When you walk in with a servant's attitude, I promise you, like we're going to see with Daniel over the next few weeks, it changes everything. People take notice of him because he said, I'm making a decision. I'm going to serve God, but I'm going to serve people. So my challenge to you today is this. Pre-decide. What's important to you? What's ultimately really important to you? Where do you want to be in life? And then you need to sit down and say, okay, what decisions do I need to make so I'm making decisions that are equal or kind of guiding me towards my values? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pray for just a second, okay? If you would just close your eyes for just a second. Nobody look around. And I'm going to ask you guys to be just really honest this morning. Really, really honest. How many of you would say, Trent, if I'm honest, I've been struggling. Maybe you're struggling with direction. Maybe you've just been struggling with life in itself. Maybe things have hit you. You've been hit with some things. They don't seem fair. How many of you you don't even have to hold it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So many of you holding your hands. I just want to pray today. Father, I pray for all those who raised their hands, so many. But I also pray for those who didn't, who are still struggling. God, I ask that you remind them that even in the lowest moments, you're in control. Even when things aren't going my way, I realize it's your will and not mine. And one of the greatest values I can have is to realize it's not even just who I am, it's actually my identity. I'm made in the image of God. And Jesus gave us this amazing example. Your Son gave us this amazing example, really simple. And that is, I came not to be served, but to serve. So help us to pre-decide that we're going to be known for things that are different. I thank you for all those people, and God, I just pray that you would work and move in their lives like only you can. Please help them. Help them to realize there's power in understanding where we want to go, how we want to serve you, and making that decision before it ever happens. Just like Daniel resolved, help us to resolve today who we're going to be, what we're going to stand for, and what we want said about us when it's all said and done. Father, I thank you, and I pray for someone in this room, someone watching online right now, right as we speak, and God, you're moving in their life. They can feel it. They can feel you calling them to something more. And right where they're at, for the first time in their life, God, you're calling them to surrender it all to you. And maybe it's saying a prayer, something like this: God, I know my life is not where it needs to be. God, I know I've messed up and sinned against you. But I'm asking you this morning to save me. Forgive me. Jesus, thank you for forgiving me today. Without anybody looking around, just real quick, I'm gonna ask you, if you for the first time said that prayer, do something really bold. Not going to make a big deal, not going to make you walk forward or embarrass you, but we want to celebrate, because the Bible tells us heaven celebrates. If that's you, something really big today, if you would, just lift your hand for just a second and say, Trent, I made that decision today. What a better way to start the new. If that's you, just put your hand up, just hold it up for just a second, let me acknowledge you, and you put it right back down. Awesome, awesome. So thankful for that. Jesus, thankful for who you are, what you do. Help us this year to live a life that counts, to live a life that truly loves others, and to live a life that honors our God. We ask these things in your name, and amen. All right, guys. Hey, so glad that you're here. Hope you have an amazing 2023. They're drowning me out. Oh, well. See you next week. Take care.